Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we're going to do a top 8 breakdown for the Pro PlayGames case tournament that happened this past weekend. It was 101 players, webcam, and has this top 8 that we see here today. And real quick before we get started, first, thank you to PPG for publishing their list. It's on their event management website, which is linked in the description as well as it was live streamed on their Twitch, and it should be re-uploaded to YouTube. I haven't confirmed this 100%, but they usually do that for their tournaments, so make sure to check that out as well. And again, thank you so much for that. And also, if you want these deck lists or any other OP03 deck lists, they're going to be on my website, Eggman Events, which is linked in the description below as well for this page too. So anyways, going on into this top 8 breakdown that we see here today, it was 6 rounds of Swiss to, again, this top 8 that we see. And we do have 4 Edward Newgates, which ended up being the entirety of the top 4. Then we also have 1 Captain Kidd, which is running the Supernova package, 1 Rob Lucci, 1 Charlotte Katakuri, as well as 1 Zoro, essentially. So a little interesting to not see Trafalgar Law in this top 8, because we normally see that one a lot of the time. I think it's I still will stand by it is probably the best matchup wise for this game in general, but a lot of Edward Newgate. And I've been seeing a couple events for this format too, and obviously in Japan, when the format started, Edward Newgate was great off the gate because Moby Dick was around. It helped the deck have like a lot of finishing power, but even without that, the deck is very, very strong in a lot of ways. And I think it's something that, you know, a lot of people have to be aware about. And generally, based on my own experience, every different leader has a different gameplay, a game plan against Newgate. And once you figure out your own leader's kind of game plan for how to finish the game, it usually gets a little bit better, but it obviously is still one of the strongest decks in the game. So we're going to go over the top placing list for each one of these leaders. So essentially their first place Newgate list and then the rest. But a lot of the Newgates were moderately the same. I'd say like 40 cards the same, and then kind of just some, you know, individual choices from there. We're going to start off with our first place list here. So this is Hamza's list here with Edward Newgate. And again, I feel like I've been talking about this a lot, but it has just a lot of support in this set. We do have obviously the new Marco, which is fantastic in its own right. We do have just like all the other support. Just having like the Izo and Marco just makes a whole lot of difference. Having a Searcher as well as a card to play mid game to get a lot of value is just, you know, very, very strong in a lot of ways. Some tech choices I see in this one. King Dew's not always used, but it's very good if you have to go first because it's a fantastic turn 5 play, or 5 Dawn play, as well as Ace. Most are kind of either running 0 or like 2, so having 1 is a little interesting for this one, as well as the Fire Fist, which is a red event, but also is you know, a Whitebeard pirate, so it's being able to find from Izo, but you can also pitch it for both Marcos, which is really strong. And there's a lot of decks and a lot of matchups, specifically like Trafalgar Law, where Fire Fist I think comes in a lot, which is really helpful, and it really pairs very well with Otama, which can help get another card into one of the 5k or 4k ranges and gets you, you know, to the end there. So otherwise than that, I think this is a strong deck, and congratulations to Hamza for their finish there. Next up we have Phillip with their 5th place finish with Eustass Captain Kidd. And something you might notice is that, you know, there's 2 different versions of Captain Kidd right now. There's the Phil version, but also just the OG kind of Supernova version. And this is not only the original version of it, but like this is almost an entirely OP01 set. The only card that's added that's OP02 is the Carrot, which is just another 2k and also gets like potentially like you play this on 5 Dawn, and then you're able to get like a Dawn back at the end of your turn every turn, which can be nice, especially since you are running a couple copies of your Punk Gibson, which is really, really nice, especially if you're, you know, up against your Eustass Captain Kidd. But this is still just a really, really good card. There's some decks that just can't handle this, especially against something like Newgate, where a lot of the time being able to set this card up means that they are delayed another turn, which means that they have to kind of leave another turn open for a lot of defense. And just the fact that our leader itself being able to do potentially 2 13k swings is enough to win the game a lot of the time. So I think this is still a strong deck. We saw this still you know, get some tops in Japan with pretty much just OP01 cards. It just has a lot of good fundamentals for the game, and if your opponent's not able to interact with you enough, or they don't play around the 8-drop, I don't have like a lot of good removal for the 8-drop with, which I think more and more decks are eventually getting in a lot of ways. This deck is just still fantastic and can, you know, still do the trick, which is really, really cool. So congratulations to Phillip for their 5th place finish there. Next up, for 6th place we do have Justen with their version of Rob Lucci, and this this is the air door version of the deck, and I've been talking about this a lot, but even though this is the air door version of it, it's still like a bit of a 50-50 between strictly the CP9 version and the Navy version a lot of the time, because we are running both the Spandam as well as 2 copies of brand new. Now we're also running Kuzan, which is normally only kind of in the Navy version, and this, for the record, I've had like a lot of comments say this: you cannot find Kuzan off brand new because he specifically says Navy type and not a type that includes Navy, because this is ex-Navy, or sorry, former Navy, or whatever it is. You cannot find this off brand new. And stop making those comments, and stop making like illegal moves. But anyways, this is still a lot of plays. Really interesting. A little bit greedy with the Navy stuff. I would be a little bit worried that you could potentially miss with something like this. But you are running enough versions, I think, of the CP9 stuff. But you see like 2 Kuzans, 2 brand news, 4 Bostelinas, which is understood, 3 Sakazukis, 2 Ishos, as well as the 1 Kuzan at the top there. We're also playing Jabra, which I feel like I need to play maybe 1 or 2 copies of this card. Since this is a 5-cost CP9, it does mean that you are able to play it off air door. If you're able to play a 7k off of turn 4, I feel like that's really, really good value. So maybe I need to investigate this myself a little bit more, but I think it's not like a terrible move. Worst case, it's just a 1k you get out of your hand, which is nice, and I think it's a really good card. But Rob Lucci, I think, has been, very, very strong as a black leader. I think Smoker did get a lot of, new tools that you could work with, but Rob Lucci just being able to have like a Eustass kid-like finishing power with his effect, which, discarding 2 cards from hand is usually not too expensive. You are in black, which means you do have a lot of effects that do depend on discarding cards from hand, but being able to get 2 attacks, and you can make these 15k attacks if your opponent has 0 life, they have a blocker up, they try to use the blocker to defend their life. 15k, discard 2, another 15k, and sometimes it gets you home a lot of the time. So I think this deck is very strong, and congratulations to Justen for their finish there. Next up we have our yellow Katakuri list. This is Justice's version of it right here, and they are running the pretty there's not a lot of yellow cards, right? But pretty basic in a lot of ways. I think Katakuri is the poster boy for yellow right now. We do have a lot of good cards with triggers, so you're pretty much running. I would say this is a almost cookie cutter list in the fact that we're running 4 copies of Parasparrow, 4 copies of Cracker, running 4 of Shirahoshi, and then 4 of each of our 2Ks in the Struzen, the Sanji, and the Pudding. Then just a couple copies of Smoothie as well, 4 copies, 4 Brulees, and then just kind of at the end we have 3 of the Star Deck Lin, which personally I've been kind of feeling less and less good about. 3 copies of the Secret Rare, which I've been feeling a little bit better in a lot of the time, as well as 4 copies of Charlotte Lin, 2 copies of Sovereignty, and 2 copies of Thunderbolt. So I think this deck is still very good. It has some polarizing matchups, sometimes in its favor, sometimes not in its favor, but the fact that you can sometimes just cheese the win in some of those bad matchups by having a lot of good cards in your life is kind of nice there too. And sometimes if your opponent doesn't have like the momentum or like the early tempo they need, like dropping 2 of the 10 drops sometimes just wins you the game, which is very strong too. So this is their list there. Congratulations to Justen for their finish. And to wrap it on up, we do have a Zoro list. I don't have a lot to say about this one. I will say it is more of like a 1-drop army, just in the fact that it is running 4 copies of the Magra. We're not seeing any copies of the Edward Newgate top end, and we're also running 3 copies of the Marshall D. Cheech, which is very strong in a lot of ways. Just the fact that you are able to like late game get a little bit extra advantage, but also like let's say you're attacking into like a buggy, and that or if you have like a 2k like ISO, you attack with it, and that your opponent has like a 2k that they can just do an easy trade with. You can convert it with the Marshall D. Teach, get an extra draw, but also this becomes an 8k very easily, which is kind of hard to get rid of. And then with 1 more Dawn investment, you're able to make it a 9k, and it becomes an 8k because of its own effect and Zoro's effect that you're almost always proccing late game. So this deck is very strong. Obviously, Zoro is a very strong leader, and Red in general has a lot of great stuff going for it. So I think that's not too surprising. It is kind of missing like the 1 or 2 copies of Fire Fist that I do see occasionally run in this deck, but I'd say this is a little bit more aggressive than I've been seeing a lot more recently. And a lot of more of the Zoros have been kind of like a mid-range version of the deck, and but this is, I feel like, a lot aggressive aggression power underneath it too. So this is Tien's list there, and that's going to be my breakdown for this event. So again, thank you very much to PPG for releasing these lists so I can go over them. Make sure to check out their website for future events that they're hosting in the next couple months as well. And again, thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. Sorry that we are on the road, so it's a little bit less quality than usual, but I really want to make sure to get as much content out there as possible. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you all next time.